All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Off Axis podcast. I'm here with Johanna. How do you spell your last name or pronounce it?
It's Sapakie.
Sapakie?
Yeah.
Cool. So you're a pole dancer, a choreographer. Do you do regular dancing as well?
Yeah, I actually started as a dancer for my whole life.
Figured.
Yeah. So I was a dancer my whole life, and then when I actually joined Cirque du Soleil, I was doing aerial acrobatics before. I'm not a classically trained gymnast, so I don't do bars or beam or anything like that. I do some floor tumbling, but I consider myself more of an aerialist than anything else. So once I joined Cirque du Soleil, the first show that I was in actually had pole work in it. So I started pole work through Cirque du Soleil, and then that kind of branched out and joined with all of my dance training to become this whole new career.
Yeah, I love how as you go through your life, you learn certain little traits, and then later in life they all start to come together. What did you do as you were growing up? Did you do team sports, or was it dancing?
Yeah, so in our family, you had to play a sport at all times. That was kind of the rule. You're always playing a sport. But my heart was in dancing. Yeah. So I danced my whole life from, as small as I can remember. There's pictures of me 3-4 years old dancing. But at the same time, I played a sport every year anyways.
Yeah.
But because my heart was in dancing, every year I would switch sports so that it didn't take up too much of my time. For sure. So it was one year I played basketball, and then the next year it was softball, and then the next year it was soccer, and da-da-da. But then the whole time I was dancing as well. That's the only thing that was really consistent throughout my whole childhood.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. I grew up playing team sports. I'd play a new one every other year.
Right.
And then eventually I just got stuck in the skate park.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you could make a living off of this.
Yeah, you find your passion, and then
Exactly.
it's try to tear me away from it. Good luck.
Yeah, for sure. And where are you originally from?
Originally, I'm from Minnesota. I'm a Midwest girl. Yeah, don't you know?
Yeah, Minneapolis area?
Yeah, if you don't know Minnesota, you say I'm from Minneapolis because that's the biggest big city that I'm close to. If you know Minnesota, I'm from a place called Plymouth.
Plymouth, okay. I know where Minneapolis is, and I know where Valley Fair is. In
okay.
Yeah. I performed in Shakopee, I believe it's called, and also at a casino out there. I can't remember what it was called.
There's Mystic Lake Casino.
Mystic Lake, that's where
the
we
big
performed.
one. Yep.
Yeah, we did that show, and then we performed at the Valley Fair over a summer. So I'm kind of a little versed in the Minnesota area.
Yep. But you were there in the summer, so it was all right.
Oh, no.
The winters are brutal.
I was there for a Christmas show.
Okay, so
at Mystic Lake. We didn't leave Mystic Lake that time. It was so cold,
brutal.
-5 at best.
Brutal, yeah.
Yeah, and then what made you move out? You moved to LA next?
Let's see what made me move out. Everything, all the things. There's nothing inherently wrong with Minnesota, but I kind of have this theory that wherever you're born and you grow up, you either want to stay there forever or you can't wait to leave.
Yeah.
And I was the second one. So for me, because I'm kind of the black sheep of the family, my family's really conservative. They're kind of straight-laced. They're kind of straightforward, and I'm just really not. Ooh. And so I couldn't wait to go to a place that just had more diversity of ideas, even more than anything else. I wanted a place where you could be weird and it was fine. So I moved out to LA just right after high school. I hit 18, got my high school diploma, and bounced. Went out to LA.
Yeah, and then you came to Vegas, which is a better place to be weird.
Yeah. Well, yeah, by the time I got to Vegas, I had been weird in LA for a while. So, I actually came out to Vegas because of Cirque. I got a job with Cirque, and that's what brought me out here.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really nice living in Vegas. The super cheap rent.
Yeah.
And, pretty much everything's a little bit cheap, so you kind of just save 25% off everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is really nice being out here. So you just did the Super Bowl, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So how was that? Were you a performer, or you said you were choreographing, right?
Yeah. So I kind of had two roles in it. So I was in charge of basically everything that had to do with pole at the Super Bowl. So from everything from kind of the design of how the LED poles were going to work and how they were going to be fabricated, all the way down to getting Jennifer ready for what she was going to do, choreographing Jennifer's section of pole movement in the show. And then when they decided they wanted other pole girls as well to kind of back up the performance, then I was tasked with finding those girls, choreographing that, and putting all that together. And then I performed in it as well, because bucket list item, performing at the Super Bowl. So
For sure.
they're like, you want to perform? And I'm like, yes, please.
Definitely. That one's really, it's ranked pretty high on my resume too.
Yeah. You want to check that box. It's like Olympics and Super Bowl. Let's check both of those at some point, you know?
Yeah. And what led you to get that position doing that?
So I had finished earlier in the year working with Jennifer on a different project. So she did a movie called Hustlers, where her main character was playing basically an exotic dancer that had been in the club for a really long time. And she was kind of supposed to be the girl in the club who really knew what she was doing. So it was really important to her to not look like an amateur up there.
Yeah.
And her like longtime director team, Nappy Tabs, Tabitha Napoleon Dumo, I know from working in Los Angeles in the commercial dance industry. So they knew that I did pole. And so they just gave me a call and said, hey, we want to bring you in to work with Jennifer because she needs to really like look legit. She doesn't want to fake it. She wants to actually learn it. So we spent a lot of good time working together on that. And then when Super Bowl came around and she wanted to include pole in that as well, they brought me back in to just continue working with her there.
Nice. Did she pick it up really quick?
She has a lot of assets.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Whoops. But yeah, like she has a lot of things going for her in that she's a dancer. So her movement quality is really good. Obviously she knows how to be sexy, like that kind of stuff, second nature. And she's a really like physically strong human because especially ever since she's been with Alex, they've been on this fitness kick.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
She's definitely a fit human, but, it's a brand new skill for her. She'd never touched a pole before. So there's still a learning curve. Like she wasn't great on day one. It still took a lot of time to teach her the things that she needed to know to look legit.
Yeah, definitely. What's the best way to get into pole dancing? Is it just like to take beginner classes, or like is it something you can start flowing around with if you just have one in your living room?
Yeah, it's what's interesting is it really depends on the person because pole dancing can be a vulnerable thing because for most people it's really outside their comfort zone, right? Because it has this connotation. It comes from strip clubs originally, right? So it has this connotation attached to it. And I think that can be, if you're not really in touch with who you are, it can be intimidating. So if it's something that's that far out of your comfort zone, then I suggest the best thing to do is to like take some group classes because the group community feel and vibe can be really supportive.
Yeah.
So if somebody's like never done it before ever, it's like, go take like a beginner group class and feel how like just fun it can be without the pressure of having to try to learn tricks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're a person who's already got like an acrobatic background, so you know what it feels like to be upside down, you know what it feels like to have to do a pull-up, you know? That's the kind of stuff where like you can transition into it a little bit faster, a little more naturally because you've got kind of that background to support you.
Yeah. And so the poles that you guys work with, do those spin or are they slippery or?
It totally depends on the project.
Yeah.
So like at Cirque, I was doing Michael Jackson 1 for a long time. And the poles there are what they call powder coated. So powder coated poles have a very specific finish that tends to feel slippery if you have sweaty hands.
Yeah.
But also you can't slide on because it'll take your skin right off.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it's this like weird in between. But then there's chrome poles, which are those like silver metal poles that people are used to seeing. And then there's the poles we used in Super Bowl, which were these like LED light up plexiglass fabricated business. And every pole you use feels different. So you just kind of got to adjust how you work on them based on what it is.
Yeah. I've worked on like Chinese poles before, which is, I'm sure, totally different, right? Because you kind of want to pad up for those. Like you want to be wearing jeans and stuff. And I feel like pole, you want to do the opposite.
Yeah. I mean, you get a lot of, we call them pole kisses, but that's crap. Like you're just getting burned and beat. Like I have a shiner.
Oh, yeah.
I have a shiner on my shoulder right now from some pole stuff I was doing the other day. Like pole girls have some rips and some tears and some burns that you kind of wish you had more clothes on for sometimes, but it's just not how it goes.
Yeah, that's not the uniform.
No, that's not the uniform. Yeah. And skin helps you stick. So
For
like,
sure.
especially with the metal poles, like that skin contact is helpful. So like if you're wearing full body, you know, other than Alberto Del Campo, who is a magician, the rest of us have to use skin to help ourselves stick. That was a shout out to Alberto.
Okay, so how long have you been doing it, and like what got you into it?
So I started doing pole when I joined Cirque in, when was that? 2009. So I actually joined as a dancer, but I was doing aerial acrobatics, silk, lyra, hammock, straps before that in some smaller circuses. And then when I got into the show, I was kind of watching what the acrobats were doing right away. And we were in creation up in Montreal. So like everything was super beginning. Like they didn't really know what they were doing with certain apparatus yet. And I was kind of watching what they were doing on the poles. And I'm like, I know that. That's similar mechanics to what I'm doing on tissue. That's similar mechanics to what's on lyra. I can do that.
Yeah.
So I basically just badgered one of the coaches to letting me try. I'm like, just give me a day, man. Like, give me 24 hours. I promise you I can do this. And I wore him down until I was like, fine, we'll give you one day. And so they let me up there for one day and then quickly realized that I knew what I was doing. And then I ended up helping create the act.
Oh,
so
awesome.
That's how it started. And then we kind of fell in love with pole through that, me and a couple of the other girls that were doing it. So then we took it from there and started kind of training other types of pole movement on our own, like outside of rehearsals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this like your full-time gig, or do you do other things on the side as well?
I do a million things, man.
You have to do a million things.
I mean, the hustle's real, right? But like so often with creative artistic brains, like one thing isn't enough. You know, you get so passionate about so many different things that like anything you're interested in, you dive into, you know? Yeah. So like, yes, I teach pole, I choreograph pole, I perform pole, but I'm also still a dancer. I choreograph dance movement. I choreograph aerial acrobatics. I teach aerial acrobatics. And then there's a whole fitness side of my career, which is separate, which is personal training, fitness training, you know, group sculpting, conditioning classes, all of that kind of stuff too, which has been like such a blessing during Corona time. To be able to do that kind of fitness stuff on the side has been really helpful.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little. Did you get your actual personal training license at all? Yeah,
so I have that NASM certified personal training license.
Nice. I took that one as well.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, you know, when you're working as an acrobat and as a dancer for so many years, you're like, I really feel like I know what I'm doing. Yep. But having that accreditation puts that like stamp of approval kind of on it. Yeah. So it lets people who maybe don't know the circus world or the acrobatic world, it gives them like solace that like, oh yeah, you know what you're doing here.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like just taking that class, even if you don't become a personal trainer, like the knowledge that you learn from that, like about how your body works, and you learn all the bones and all that crazy stuff. A lot of stuff you probably forget like the minute you take that test and you pass. You're like, yeah.
Right. Soleus, where's that?
Yeah, I was a trainer for years and I never like used any of that information.
Yeah, because you don't want to like, for the lay person, you don't want to overwhelm them with information. You know what I mean? You like pepper in a term here and there, maybe, but you're not trying to overwhelm them with anatomy. Yeah. But yeah, like I've done Pilates certification as well, and every time I do any of those, like the most interesting part to me is like what you said, the way the muscles and the bones form and work and shift, so that you're like understanding the how of everything you're doing feels like important knowledge when you're training yourself. Yeah, I think what I use most from that course is the muscle imbalances. I find I run into those quite often. Yeah. And people are like, oh, my legs hurt. I'm like, well, you probably have muscle imbalances over here. Right. Especially with like acrobats and performers and stuff, you tend to do like a lot of motions, maybe only on one side or only in certain ways, and it's actually not really good for your body. Generally. So yeah, I find that that's probably like what I end up leaning towards the most. Yeah, it's that like overuse syndrome that we all get from performing 500 shows a year, doing the same exact act over and over and over again. Is that like, yeah, spend a little bit of your free time, if you have any, working that opposition so that you can, like you said, try to balance yourself in a way that, 10 years from now, you're not going to be sorry. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So what Cirque shows have you done so far? So I did a show called Viva Elvis, which like... That one had the coolest trampoline. Oh, coolest tramp set. Yeah, if you saw the Cirque movie that came out, totally biased opinion, but definitely the coolest scene in that movie was the Elvis tramp scene. Yeah. Our tramp set was friggin' beyond. Yeah. And so many super crazy talented artists in that show. Such talented artists. But it was kind of like a perfect storm of a bunch of things that were not working in our favor.
Yeah.
So that one kind of lived and died, but it kind of got me in the family a little bit.
Yeah.
And met a lot of really great people and kind of started my Cirque life off. And then after Elvis, I took a little time away because I need a little breather.
Yeah.
And went back to commercial work, which I was doing before. And I was doing a show with the guy who actually directed Michael Jackson 1.
Oh, wow.
And so I was doing a reality show where I was being a choreographer on that. And right after we finished that, he was going to start MJ1. And so he just asked me. He knew I was both a dancer and a pole dancer, and he knew we needed one of those in the show to kind of like do both roles. So he asked me to do it, and I was like, all right.
What casino was Elvis at?
At the Aria. We opened the Aria. Like when it very first opened, we were like the first thing in there.
Like in 2000, what year did Elvis open?
I moved to Vegas in 2009, so it either opened end of 2009 or beginning of 2010. That's my guess. It's all a blur.
Yeah, and how long did it run for? Do you know?
I think it ran for 5 years, and I hung in there for 4.
That's pretty short, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Elvis had a rough run, a really good group of people with a real rough uphill battle on that one. And then Zarkana was in that theater after us, and same thing. There was just some difficulties with that whole setup.
Yeah.
Elvis, I left about a year before it finished. And then, I think it did about 5 years. But usually contracts for Cirque shows are like 10, 11 years, and then they re-up and keep trucking. So, it was fairly short for Elvis.
Yeah. So did you move back to LA after that, or did you stay around Vegas?
No, I stayed here. Part of what you said is that like Vegas is close enough to LA that you can be there when you want to be there. But the cost of living here is so choice that,
you might as well just spend the gas to drive there and back. You'll
seriously.
save it by living here.
Exactly. And you can have I'd built a whole life here at this point. You know what I mean? Like I had a house, I had pets, I had, friends here. I had a whole complete life here.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, as long as I can use this as my home base and then travel and fly from here, then why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I stayed here, but just started traveling a bunch again.
Yeah. I mean, if you're an entertainer, I think Vegas is literally the ultimate place to be.
Yeah.
You can still do all your auditions in LA, and then you can have a gig here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely like Vegas. I just wish there was more trees and like green stuff, because coming from like the mountains in California to out here where like my lips shrivel up if I'm outside too long. I feel like everyone has that problem. They get out here and they're like, my lips are so chapped.
Yeah. But you find that here too, that like there is nature here if you know where to look.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not in your backyard. But so I live up like right near Red Rock. So I'm like 5 minutes from Red Rock Preserve, which is not, the Colorado Rockies, but you can go hiking. You can find a stream. You can find a waterfall, and then Mount Charleston is close. Zion is close. You can get to places where there's nature. And then, you drive 20 minutes and you're inside of Neon City. So you kind of get a little bit of both if you want it.
Yeah, definitely. There's everything's like an hour away from here. It seems like we're just right in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like a perfect center. Mm-hmm. How has the COVID pandemic affected you?
Oh, not at all. It's exactly the same. No,
did you have like gigs and stuff that you lost because of it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think almost every entertainer's world turned upside down.
The summer is where everyone makes their money pretty much.
It was like, for me, it was the beginning of March, and within like a week, I pretty much had the whole rest of my year planned out. I had gigs going on, especially coming off of a movie with Jennifer, work with Dragon, and then Super Bowl. I had gigs lined up through the end of the year pretty consistently. And within like a week, every single one of them was gone.
Yeah.
Completely. And not like, hey, we'll do it again another time. It's like, we don't know when we're going to do it again. So we'll call ya.
The crazy thing is like, when are we going to be able to sit in like theaters next to each other again?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Well, I think we're all wondering that.
Fortunately, like all the riots and protests are kind of like overlapping that. People are forgetting that there was even a COVID.
It'll be really interesting to see, because Vegas is just starting to open up now. So it'll be interesting to see like, how that shifts people's perception of what's safe and what's acceptable. Because the other thing we were thinking too is like when we go into trainings for shows, there's no 6 feet of distance.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Like, simply to spot each other doing tricks, you're touching each other. There's no way to not have contact. So yeah, you have to get to that comfort level before you're gonna be inside of a show situation, you know? So I think the artists are ready. It's just, can we get the audience in the seats to pay those tickets?
Yeah. Maybe they'll be like selling masks and stuff. That's like the new, instead of popcorn, they sell masks.
To be fair, Michael Jackson could totally pull that off, because didn't Michael Jackson wear masks for like a good long time?
Yeah.
Right? You could just have Michael Jackson like branded masks, dress like Michael, come to the show.
Maybe they need like flavored masks or something.
Oh my God. There's like a whole probably like vaping branding company that could happen there.
You could totally like vape and no one would ever know.
Right?
Well, I guess they would smoke, but.
Yeah, but like some sort of filter on the inside of the mask that just blows the air in. You puff it out the side.
There's a lot of things you can do with those masks on. You
probably
could hide stuff in there and be like, oh, sorry, I can't take my mask off.
Yeah.
Or I'll get COVID.
Sorry. They're like, yeah, but your mask is smoking. And you're like, no. You're seeing things. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And you've worked for Dragon as well, too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Those are pretty comparable companies. Like, I don't want to say which one would you rather do, but like, what's the difference in working for either of them?
Well, I think the most interesting thing for me is that I worked for them in different capacities. So I was a performer with Cirque for 10 years. And then with Dragon, before Cirque, worked with them a little bit, and just on kind of a pilot project. And then same thing after Cirque, worked with them on the production side of things. I was in the aerial choreographer role. So I think that experience alone is quite different. But I think it really helps having been a performer, because then when you step into the choreographer role, you remember very vividly what it felt like to be on the other side. So you try to be like sensitive to that.
Yeah, for sure.
But what's the biggest difference? The approach is different because the companies are simply different sizes. And have different focuses right now. So the approach to even like how they create shows is different. So it was really interesting, being able to sit in a room with Franco and just like hear his brain, come out, because he's just like pure creativity. And you're listening to him going like, holy crap, what's going on inside your brain, man? It's got to be just colors, all the time. Yeah, he's one of a kind for sure. Yeah,
and it's good to be a performer that also does choreography, because there's not really anything much worse than working with like choreographers and like directors that have never performed before. Like, I've had a few of those, and like they just don't get it sometimes.
Yeah.
Like in every aspect of performing.
Well, and I think you run into that a lot with pole, because like there's a lot of like, I've worked with a lot of dance choreographers who then think you're just dancing on an acrobatic apparatus, and you're like, it couldn't be more different. Like as a dancer, you can hit something on and a one. As a pole artist, there's no and a one. It's like, I need 4 counts to prep to get into this trick to hit it on the count you want. Yeah. Seems more comparable to aerial. Yeah, very similar. We're like, for a dance performance, it's like, well, the camera's going to pan by. You have 8 seconds of airtime. And as a dancer, that's enough to do something. As an acrobat, there's nothing there. No, yeah. 8 seconds, it's one drop. And you better be prepped for it before it happens. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a different perspective. For sure. Yeah. In acrobatics, we tend not to go off the 8 counts very often. I have done a few shows where we're using 8 counts, but generally you're just going on the music cues. You're like, you need to be in the middle of the air at this time. Right. Yeah, exactly. Kind of yeah, so like with Super Bowl, for example, I'm working with these directors and choreographers who are used to E and A. And so they're giving us all the camera angles, and they're telling me, the girl needs to be here on this needs to be happening on this, da-da-da-da. And then it's my job, because I'm from both worlds, to then go interpret that to the pole artists so that the choreographers and the directors are getting what they want, but I'm interpreting it in a way that the pole dancers can actually achieve it. You know what I mean? Because what the director's asking for isn't actually possible. That's true. But how can I give them what they're asking for without them realizing that I've shifted it in a way that it is possible now? Yeah, for sure. It's like that secret trick of like, oh no, this is what you asked for. Yeah. Don't you love it? Gotta love when someone asks you something that's like not possible. Yeah, at all. Like, you have to levitate. You can work with something like that. Right. Like, oh, I hear what you're saying. Great. Give me some minutes and I'll come back to you. Yeah.
So I'm assuming you've dealt with like a lot of cyberbullying kind of stuff before, like lots of hate comments, being like a pole person. Like, how like did you get into pole at like such a young age that really affected you?
Well, I think the like crappy part of it is that there is no young or old age where cyberbullying doesn't affect you.
That's
you know
true.
what I
Were you
mean?
getting
Like,
cyberbullied on MySpace?
yeah, Tom, he was such an ass. I'm kidding. But no, I mean, I got into pole when I was an adult, like fully past 21. I mean, I'm only 22 now, but no. But yeah, I mean, I was fully an adult when I got into that scene. But working with Jennifer on Hustlers and all the publicity that came with that kind of blew up what I was doing past the circus community and brought it to like, middle America.
Yeah.
And it's really easy for people to hide behind their screens and type whatever they'd like to type and not have to back it up with their own face. Mm-hmm. And so that was a real rabbit hole of an experience for me. Because like we've all dealt with people saying rude things, but on that level where it's thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, you're like, wow, you have to be really careful to not believe it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's tricky business.
Like the YouTube comments section is like horrendous.
Man.
Those kids.
Oh man, brutal stuff, man. Brutal stuff. And like the hard part is you want to respond, right? Like you want to be like, no, but if you just knew me, but that's not the point. That's not why people are sounding off, Yeah.
So,
tricky stuff.
It's going to be weird when all these kids who grew up with the internet, like, because they've been doing this their whole life. That's all they know.
Right.
And a lot of kids like are going to be awkward in person. Like they didn't develop those like personable traits of like talking to people.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, now that I think about it, people aren't going to see each other as often. Like everything's going to be at home. Like homeschool is going to be more of a bigger thing.
Right.
People are just going to live in their bubbles at home and do everything from there.
Yeah, there's this like socialization aspect that it's not that it's going away, it's just shifting form where like now we're socializing through screens. And so we have to figure out how to still have the humanity involved, you know, because that screen feels like a filter. It feels like a safe zone. I can say whatever I want over here because you can't get to me.
Yeah.
But like the reality is like our hearts and minds hear everything that comes through the screen and we feel it like it's right there. So how do we still have that human element behind a screen that we need in order to simply be like good people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And even like nowadays on my Facebook with all these riots going and stuff, like originally I posted some opinions and then like later the next day I'm like, probably shouldn't have done that. I should probably take everything down. Because like if you post one thing, whether it's good or bad, like your friend comments something and then you wake up and there's like 100 notifications and your friends are like threatening to kill each other and like all this stuff. Yeah, it's just getting pretty crazy nowadays.
When it gets hard to like you said, like that's why I said I went down the rabbit hole because like, for example, with that Jennifer situation, when there's like a 13-minute YouTube episode that came out about how we prepared for her role in the movie. And so you see everything from like, our very first training all the way to, once we got on set and what we were doing there. And it's, in theory, it's supposed to be about the preparation of what this woman did to try to be ready.
Yeah.
But what it became is a comparison between me and her. And so the YouTube comments were comparing essentially what I look like with what she looks like. And you're like, well, Holmes, listen, if you like what Jennifer Lopez looks like, yeah, I'm not your girl. You know what I mean? Like, you're right. I don't look like her. And so if you're going to tear me down because I was hired to do a job, not look a certain way. I got hired for that role to train her as an acrobat, not to look fierce doing it. You know what I mean? I came to trainings ready to sweat and work.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of comments about, my body and my face and what I was wearing and, nitpicking. And once you start reading those comments, it's hard to stop. And you go down this rabbit hole of negativity and you have to you just have to stop. You just have to stop reading it and be like, you know what? Some people are going to love you. Some people aren't, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, for sure. I always like try to picture those people as like fat people eating pizza in front of their TV. And
yep.
So I just pulled up some statistics about cyberbullying. More than half of teens and adolescents have admitted to being bullied online. About the same number have engaged in cyberbullying. Sounds a little low, actually.
I was gonna say, I
most
think
people,
they're lying.
more than 1 in 3 have experienced cyber threats online. Have definitely received like death threats over certain things. Over 25% of adolescents and teens have been bullied repeatedly through their cell phones on the internet. Yeah, sounds about right. And
I agree with you. I feel like it's a little low. I feel like there's so many people that are receiving that kind of information. And, you know, like when I was getting all that stuff from that experience with Jennifer, like I was saying, you want so much to respond, like you're somehow going to change people's minds or opinions. But the couple times I did respond, it was simply to try to let people know, just so you know, there's a human on the other side of your comments.
it's hard to explain that to people.
Right. Like you're not just commenting out into space. There is a real human being receiving that information. And if you think about it that way, if you think of another human hearing what you're saying, hopefully maybe you'll think twice about writing it. But then I also did want to say, like, and just so you know, can you send me a picture of you in a bikini on a pole? Because I'd really like to compare. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know what the solution to this. I feel like it's only get more worse.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll get the comments and I'm like, how can I dig into this kid's soul?
Right.
And then I'm like over here looking at random kids who are dicks online's pages. I'm like, why am I on this kid's YouTube channel?
Right. That's the other thing, is that like if I respond, I'm giving them attention, which is why they said the thing in the first place. So is the best thing to just totally ignore it? I don't know. Does that make it go away? I don't know. I'm going to say something political. Look at our president. Like, it's not like it is affecting him right now.
I know.
And he says loads of things that people like hang on his every freaking word, you know? I mean, this is a can of worms, but.
It's a crazy can of worms.
Yeah. But it's hard to teach your kid to be kind online when that's the precedent going on in our country, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how do you teach that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like well, I can kind of say for certain I don't think he's a good leader, no matter what his like business background is or anything. If you ran a business to where you're literally like separating people down the middle, like it's not going to work. You know, I feel like the president doesn't necessarily have to be the like well educated on all topics. I feel like it needs to be someone who can just get everyone to come together. Because like it's not like if you're a CEO of a business, it's not like you know how to do like marketing and sales and like you know them just a little bit, but you mostly need to get everyone to work together. Right.
Well, and I think that's what, like exactly what you said, like that's what makes a fantastic leader, is knowing how to create a team full of people that you trust to do their jobs well. You know what I mean? And then motivating them in a way that makes them want to do well, you know? And our director for that Dragon show that I did, her name is Amy Tinkham, and she was that. It's like she walked in going, listen, I don't know about acrobatics, but I know the vision I want to achieve, and I trust you to help me create it. So I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking and feeling, and then I trust you to go do amazing things, and then we'll work together.
Yeah.
You know? And that's when you feel the most, like, powerful in your position to want to produce great work, you know?
Yeah, for sure. When someone's giving you that kind of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And putting their faith in you, because they're like, listen, I know you can do it. I know you're good at this. So pull it up from inside of you and go do great things. And you're like, yeah, I can, you know? Yeah, absolutely. I can do great things. And I want to go do it now, instead of like trudging off to the office and punching, you know, your 9 to 5.
Yeah, for
like
sure.
Emboldens you to do better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know. Like, president's definitely not a good position to be in, and I feel like you need to just be able to get along with everyone. Like The Rock. Did you see The Rock's last speech about Donald Trump and presidency and not being there for the people?
I didn't, but I'm watching Titans. Are you watching Titans?
Oh, is that a Rock show?
It is. So Dwayne Johnson has this like new, it's almost like the old American Gladiators. Are you old enough for that to know like the original American Gladiators?
No.
Okay.
Well, almost 30. So.
Oh my God, you're a child, baby. So there was a show called American Gladiators a really long time ago. And it was basically just like an athletic competition. They had these like giant He-Man looking people that were on one side and then like normal humans on the other side. And they competed against each other in these like, you know, jousting championships and obstacle courses. And
I feel like I did see that actually.
There was like a reboot of it with Hulk Hogan. Not the same. But the original one was basically just like athletes competing against like superhumans. And so The Rock kind of has this thing going on right now. Hey, shout out to The Rock if you want me on the show. But it's basically like obstacle courses with super fit people. But it's actually like they're really they seem to be, because it's all television.
Yeah, for sure.
But they seem to be athletes. And I love watching, you know, people with a lot of good physical prowess like push themselves, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he would be a good president because he might be that guy that comes in like, hey, I don't know anything, but I know we need to all work together. And that's like, I don't know. I also feel like when you get into president, there's someone else is like, all right, this is what you're actually going to do.
Right.
And like, you're really not in that control, but I don't know.
I mean, I think it takes a really strong person to say, listen, I don't know everything.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's an insecure person who wants you to believe they're in charge of everything, because that's not real. We can't know everything. But like, to be able to stand up and be like, listen, I'm smart. I know a lot of things, but here's what I don't know. And that's why I grabbed this person and that person and this person to help me, so that I have the most information I can have to make decisions.
Yeah.
You know? So I'd vote for The Rock.
Yeah.
The Rock 2020.
Yeah, I don't know. I just want to vote for anyone other than one of the two parties. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get political, but the Dems kind of blew it by throwing Joe Biden in there.
It's just so tricky. Yeah, our system is just a mess, but I don't know. Yeah. Either way, vote. Everyone vote. Do it. Vote. Yeah. Because if you don't vote, you got nothing to say.
I'm going to write the Brock in on the ballot. I don't know. It's like there should be two choices. It's so crazy that there even is two choices. And it's very unfortunate because it's like guy with dementia or guy who has Twitter problems. And I don't know which one I'm supposed to vote for. Like,
I mean, and then I think a lot of what the issue was, I mean, again, this is just my opinion, but a lot of what the issue was with the last election is that, like, who do you like least? Vote for the other person.
Exactly.
And, like, so then you're picking, you don't like either one, but you're picking the one that I guess you can stomach a little more than the other guy. Like, is that the person you want running the free world? Oh, man, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's unfortunate they both have, like, pedophile traits nowadays, too.
Yeah, they're a little skeezy.
Yeah, I've been looking at do you know what Anonymous is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I've been looking at the stuff they've been posting. I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Now this all makes so much sense. Yeah.
But then again, it's like throughout history, only recently have we had the ability to know the things we know about the people that are in charge. So, like, for all we know, you know, George Washington was as skeezy as Donald Trump. We just don't know because he didn't have Twitter.
That is probably accurate. It's probably very accurate, too, because especially, like, in the future, I bet you they're going to be throwing up things like, oh, you searched up Pornhub 1 million times as a teenager.
And who hasn't? You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And, like, there's just going to be, this is his web searches versus his. Are you going to really vote for this person who's been looking up these things? Or one time you searched up murder videos and, like, yeah, that's going to, because they know everything we're saying.
It's saved forever.
Forever, yeah. If you ever want to be a person in power, that's going to be something that pops up in the future, I bet.
Right. But that's the hard part, too, is that, like, why do we expect, I mean, ethics and morals, absolutely. But why do we expect people in their, like, youth to make all of the right decisions all the time? Like, we're supposed to be idiots when we're young. That's why we need older people to lead the way. That's why we need people with smart backgrounds and our best interests at heart to help us. Because we're young and our brains aren't formed yet and we're going to make mistakes. And that should be forgiven as long as you live and learn and move forward. The problem is when you get stuck in one spot and you think you're fine.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I feel like the best way is to just keep your mind open to everything, whether it's like business, whether it's like athletics, or you always got to go into everything like with a very like, I'm dumb, like teach me, and like I want everyone's opinion kind of thing. Once you're stuck in your own ways, like I've tried to teach people who are like a little older, especially like personal training, that kind of stuff. Like people are so stuck in their own ways, and like to get people to go out and like even like go to the gym, if that's not like one of their like hobbies they grew up doing,
right?
It's really hard to get people like out of their comfort zone, you know?
Totally. Yeah, and I say this a lot when I teach classes too, especially to adults, is that like, you know, when you're a little kid, you're not scared of failing and you're not scared of looking stupid because you don't know anything yet. Yep. So like when you're a little kid and you're learning how to walk, you don't care if you fall down because you don't know, you're not supposed to. You don't know what right is. You're just trying to learn. Yeah. And then as you get older, you become so hyper aware of perception and like, oh, I'm not allowed to not know what I'm doing. I'm not allowed to look foolish. I'm not allowed to make a mistake. And so then you stop trying things you've never tried before because inevitably, like what you were asking me about Jennifer starting pole. Yeah, the first day she wasn't good because it was her first day. There would be no expectation for anyone to be good the first time they try something. But we have this feeling in ourselves that like, I can't do something if I'm not good at it. Well, then you're never going to learn anything new because you're not going to be good your first time you try anything. You have to have that learning curve, you know, but if you give yourself the opportunity to fail, you allow yourself the opportunity to succeed.
Yep, for sure.
And that should be on a t-shirt. I'm going to make one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, everything takes quite a while to pick up, and no one's ever going to be good right off the bat. But if there was like YouTube comments and stuff on the first day, if you learn something, they're all going to be like, "This guy sucks."
Right? What a foolish loser. Right? And then you read that, you believe it, and you stop trying. Totally.
That's true.
Right. Or like simply like we have to feel like we have to filter everything before we post it, right? Because it's got to look perfect. Like I can't show you my process. I got to show you the finished product. Or I got a screenshot that like 1/2 a second it was perfect.
Yeah.
But then that makes people think that they're supposed to be perfect. And that can be like debilitating to people who want to try, you know? Like we should all be posting the video of like what it took to get that final shot.
I tried to do that actually.
Oh yeah? Good for you.
Well, I try to stick to like, I don't do too much Instagram content. It seems to be like, oh, here's the best 5 seconds of what I did today.
Totally.
I like YouTube. That's what I like.
Yeah.
Generally gravitated towards, and like that's more of like, here's the whole process of like, we got here. This is what we did to set up, and like this is how the whole process worked out.
Yeah. That feels
it's
real.
More organic for sure. Otherwise, if you look at someone's like Instagram profile, here's a million pictures they took in the mirror. You know?
Right. And they're perfect in every one because they got 12 filters on it. You know what I mean? And you're like, well, am I supposed to be that? Am I supposed to do that? And then like from a business perspective, like online formats are such a huge part of our entertainment business now that you feel like if you post your process, is that going to make people not want to learn from me because they see me not being perfect? Like there's that mind game that you play with yourself. Like, crap, I got to post perfect things. So people think I'm good. So people want to hire me to learn my things. Crazy.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, like last year, I posted a video of me like belly flopping and back flopping and like all the worst things that happen on this day of us cliff diving. And someone messaged me and they said, hey, you probably shouldn't like post all these things if you ever want to get hired by a show because it's just all you do is post like your falls and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's probably accurate. And then like 2 days later, I got hired by a diving show.
Yeah,
like,
suck it.
Boom. They obviously didn't look at my Instagram.
But also too, like anybody who's at a high level has made mistakes along the way.
Yeah,
anybody.
They get it, for sure.
Totally. But like, you know, it's somebody that's going to frickin' go for it over and over and over again. Those are the people that are going to get better. Those are the people that are going to be great. Is like, yeah, I messed up. I'm amped to try again because I messed up and I want to do better.
Yeah.
You know, it's the person that messed up and then never tried again. That's the one that they're not going to hire.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, you know, I'm going to go look up that video when I get home, right? Like, belly flopping 101.
Yeah, no, I have lots of videos of me screwing up. Thank God, like, I don't really work for other people very often, so I'm generally the person who's doing the hiring, so I'm like, I don't care. Don't hire me. Yeah. I don't know. That's, like, I have pretty terrible, like, technique when it comes to acrobatics.
Okay.
Hence why I named my company Off Axis, because someone told me when I was learning, I was like, they said, do you do anything that's not off axis? Because every time you do a flip, it's a little crooked. I'm like, that's the perfect name for my business.
You're like,
and
that's my style, yo.
Yeah, it's like you can be free. Like, not everything's going to be perfect. There's no right or wrong way to do anything. Sometimes you might just be a little off axis.
Yeah. People ask me all the time why I don't do pole competitions, because there's a ton of competitions now for pole dancers in all different kinds of genres, and very similar to like ice skating competitions, where they're in some of the competitions there are elements you need to include, and you get points based on how you perform these elements and da-da-da. And I'm like, nah, I like the art of it. Yep. And when you're creating a painting, what's the perfect brush stroke? It's so individual. So instead of competing and getting evaluated on the perfect line or the perfect technique, I like the feeling of the flow and the movement and how whatever I'm feeling that day comes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to have to kind of like drum it down into its elements. Yeah. I want it to be more free than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up competing.
Although if you'd like me to judge for a pole competition, you can go ahead and find me at Instagram at Johanna Sapakie Real.
Yeah. Is there specific like criteria that they have for pole competitions?
Yeah, it totally depends on the competition. So there's some competitions that are called like pole art, for example, and those ones are usually more open, where it's like create a story, create a vibe, create an emotion, and go do your thing. So that would be kind of more my cup of tea per se. But because I have an acrobatic background and I'm clearly like trained in the acrobatic part of it, there are also like technical pole competitions where, there are certain like, gymnastics, certain elements that you get certain points for that need to be included in your, compulsory type routine.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of ones where it's like, then don't we kind of all start looking similar after a while?
Sure.
And now it becomes about, how many tricks you can pack into a small amount of time instead of like, how did you feel when I was done performing?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I started doing tramp wall competitions recently. Like I threw the first one. And the amount of hate I got on the beginning was like, how can you compare an art form? This is like... And I was like, I don't know. It seems like a fun idea, and a lot of people want to do it, so I'm gonna do it. And I just kind of try to go with one. We pick out 3 judges. I want to have a technical person,
right?
More of someone who's completely different, doesn't come from trampoline at all, but understands it, and then one other person who's got a totally different background that's very artistic and kind of free or something like that. I find that's only the best way to do it.
Yeah. Well, then you get different perspectives. People are looking at it from different vantage points. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
But you probably got a ton of positive feedback from that competition too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I just think that those kind of competitions are the best. If you look at the on deck perspective of the competition, everyone's just vibing off each other. It's a really good time. And those are the best kind of sessions anyways, when everyone's vibing, trying to push
then you're
each
pushing
other.
each other. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Because if there is no competition, then no one's gonna if everyone was just content with just doing with what they were comfortable with,
right?
Then no one's ever gonna progress.
Right. We become stagnant. Totally. And that's exactly what you said. When you get in a room with your friends and you vibe out and you're trying to best each other, but in the most supportive way. You know what I mean? You see somebody do something sick and you're like, I want to try that. And then what can I add to it? And then that promotes someone else's, brain to think of something else. And then that's how tricks progress,
Yep,
is we just get inspired, not to, take or copy, but to be inspired by and then move forward with, and then when you bring that kind of community of athletes or acrobats or artists together, it's the energy in the air always feels really palpable. You know what I mean? It's a buzz in the air of people getting excited about new things.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And let's see. So where do you see pole going in the future? Do you think it our pole's going to get bigger? Do people constantly progress it?
Yeah. Well, exactly. It's what's next?
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of stuff that's happening in the pole world. There's a huge push for pole to be in the Olympics. They are really, really pushing for that. They are moving forward with that. There's a whole organization kind of devoted to trying to figure that out. And they're doing well. I will be personally surprised if it happens because of the connotation that I feel it's difficult to separate it from. But it can be a highly acrobatic sport. So, if they want to go that route, the tricks that some of the like 12-year-olds are doing on poles now is mind blowing. Yeah.
Dang. So younger kids are getting into it
Oh,
now.
yeah. Yeah, there's like, 12-year-old contortionists that you're like, I don't even know how you wrap yourself around like that. Like, that's insane. Yeah. And they're, flipping and turning. And then you see guys like Alberto, like I was saying, but there's so many guys that do pole now, not just Chinese pole, but that are doing dance pole and are doing these like crazy high level tricking moves that are so impressive and so like almost inspired from like a breakdance perspective. So they have this different style about them that's so interesting.
Yeah, I bet doing Chinese pole and like having that as a background and the regular pole. What's the actual name for it? Is it aerial pole? No,
we'll call it dance pole.
Dance pole.
It's usually where I go with it is dance pole. If I'm promoting it in a very like commercial setting, it's an acrobatic pole.
Acrobatic pole.
Yes. If you're talking about it in like the pole world, dance pole. Just to differentiate it from Chinese pole, but dance pole can sound like stripper pole, so you don't use that term when you're talking to like my mom.
What? You're a stripper pole?
Oh my God, it's so funny. Okay, wait. So short story. So my grandma, bless her heart, my grandma's the most open-minded, awesome lady. She's 98. She's awesome. Yeah. She actually holds the record for the oldest lady to jump off the stratosphere in that stratosphere fall thing, whatever.
I'm terrified of doing that.
Yeah. It's my grandma. But anyway, so she's a daredevil. She's the only person in my family that I admit I'm related to because she's the daredevil of the family. But she's super open-minded, bless her heart, and she lives in a home with, other people her age, and she loves to tell people, oh, this is my granddaughter. She works on a pole. Like, that's it. All of her friends, this is my granddaughter. She works on a pole. And I'm like, oh, we got to give her different words to use. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I don't think she hears it the way it's coming out.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I'm sure everyone at her home thinks I'm a stripper. Sure.
Yeah. Well, maybe we got to get her to start doing some trample.
There you go. Oh, my God. No. She would love it. She would love it. She really, like, for every year for her birthday, she plans a stunt.
Oh.
So, yeah. So, 88, she jumped off the stratosphere. And then, like, 89, she went skydiving. 90, she did, like, an open-air two-seater plane. But, like, every year she does some different stunt, paragliding, whatever. Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, she's checking her bucket list hard right now.
Dang.
Yeah.
Grandma sounds like a pretty dope person.
Oh, she's
Does
badass.
She live in Vegas?
She doesn't. She lives in Minnesota.
Oh.
I know, bummer.
She got to get her out to some of the Cirque shows. Has she seen, like, the Cirque?
She saw Viva Elvis, but she hasn't. I don't think she saw MJ, but it'd be good to get her out here.
I always ask everyone, what's your favorite Cirque show that you've seen? It doesn't have to be Cirque du Soleil, but, like, circus-style show.
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, I really loved the original Le Rêve. Like the OG Le Rêve when it first came out, when it was so artistic and so like the colors, the visuals, like it was just the most beautiful thing. And it's gone through a bunch of like revamps and regenerations and it's still a beautiful show. But when it first opened, it was so about like the human body and seeing the muscles working when the artists were, doing what they were doing. And I just fell in love with it. So that's probably like my, Le Rêve circa 2000 and I don't know, 7 or something. Yeah. It's like my favorite ever.
I recently saw it last year and I was like, man, I gotta go to the gym.
Yeah,
that was the vibe that I got from it.
Yeah, they're real out of shape in that show, losers.
Yeah. For sure. Those guys, it's like everyone is so jacked in that show.
Yeah. We say all the time that like when you work for Cirque du Soleil, your vibe of like what humans are supposed to look like is skewed forever.
Oh, for
because
sure.
everyone's bodies are shredded all the time. And you're like, you start to think that that's what people look like.
Yeah, no.
It's not.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Then you go back to like Iowa and you're like, oh, right. People are different.
Definitely.
Yeah. What's your favorite Cirque show?
I like Volta.
Okay.
But I'm biased because they have both my disciplines, trample, and they have BMX in it as well.
Oh, work. Have you seen House of Dancing Waters?
No.
Okay.
I haven't. That's the one with the Russian swing in the water, though, right?
I don't think so.
No?
That's the one that has the BMX in it.
What?
It's in Macau.
Oh, I don't know
Okay.
that.
It's a Dragon show that's, I think it's oh man, if I'm getting these details wrong, sorry about it. It's a it's a Cirque-ish show that's in Macau. It's a water show. But it has like this whole BMX section. But it also has like similar visuals to Le Rêve as far as like it being a water show, and there's a lot of different disciplines that kind of reference. But yeah, it's got a cool BMX element.
Dope. Yeah. I've been waiting for them to put in like my actual discipline, which is like scootering.
Okay.
So BMX, but on a scooter.
Okay.
So far, no one's really done it yet, though.
You should propose it.
I'm working on it.
All
That's
right.
pretty much the reason why I have this giant backyard. Because like,
There
we
you
gotta
go.
put together a scooter number, and then I guess now I'm giving it away to everyone.
Yeah. But no, that's what it is, right? Is that
for
like,
sure.
you know, they really do look to their artists to be creative. Like what, you know, because so many things now have been done. So it's like, what's the new spin on it? Like you were saying, what's next in pole? Like, so now it's like people are doing a lot of aerial pole where the pole is flying and it has no base. It has no support system from below. But it's like, okay, so then what's next? Like with Elvis, how we had that V-tramp, you know, so now are we having poles on angles? Like what other like physical dimension can we add to a pole? So it's not just a vertical piece.
Yeah.
Like what angle can we stick them at? What's sticking out of it? What's underneath it? You know, are we kind of like what was in Iris? You know, is there trampolines around it so that you can bounce to it and through it? And like what else can you do with the apparatus to expand what you can do with the apparatus, you know?
Yeah. That would, like, if you had poles all over the place, like you can transfer from one to another.
Almost like an obstacle course of poles, so to speak. But like,
Pole
could it be
obstacle courses?
Totally. But could it be vertical? So instead of just going like, you know, like jumping pegs, could it be some sort of vertical traverse that you could move through, slide down, get around, like a Jacob's ladder of poles, kind of like, you know, what else can we create with our $1 million budget?
Yeah. Well, someone give me $1 million.
Yes.
Like Red Bull, I bet you could do it.
Yeah, I don't want their wings. I want their money.
I saw that they got sued for that, telling everyone they were going to get wings and no one got wings. And they got sued.
They should have just like given everybody like buffalo wings and been like, oh, sorry, we weren't clear. Enjoy your snack.
It'd probably be cheaper than everyone not actually getting wings.
And being sued.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that recently? I didn't hear about that.
I want to say it was like 10 years ago or so. I remember seeing like an ad that popped up and said, if you have consumed Red Bulls and you did not get wings, you have like the right to sue them. And
oh my God, that's awesome.
There's like a lawsuit or something like that.
Like a class action lawsuit against Red
Pretty
Bull
much,
for no wings. That's funny.
I like when you get like random checks in the mail for like 38 cents. It's like, this Disney got sued. I'm like, I didn't work for them for like 10 years. What?
Yeah. No, I literally got one of those recently. And what's so funny is it's still in my wallet. I haven't deposited yet because it's 57 cents for some like episode I did of something a while ago. And I'm like, do I deposit the 57 cents? Do I throw it away? What do I do with that 57 cents? It feels silly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Thanks for it, Zag. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Let's wrap this up right here.
Cool.
We're at an hour now. Where can everyone find you on social media?
All right. So my Insta handle is at Johanna Sapakie Real, because there was a Johanna Sapakie not me for a while.
Uh-oh.
So this one's my first and last name, at Johanna Sapakie, REAL. So you can find me there on Insta. Facebook is just my first and last name, Johanna Sapakie. I have a YouTube channel. It's Johanna Sapakie.
Cool.
So if you know my first and last name, you can find me. But if you get through the first 3 letters of my last name, you're going to find me, because there's not a lot of Johanna Sapakies out there.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, and see you in the future.
You know
Thank
it.
you.
It's been a pleasure. I'll judge your next tramp competition.
Yeah, definitely. Bring you in for sure.
Killer.
All right. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.